Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Sorry that we are a little bit late. We are on a bit of a different system tonight online. So we have some councillors who have joined us online who are on Zoom with us, Councillor D'Amico, Councillor Bostock, and Councillor Peart. And the rest of us are in the City Council chamber. So I will, I call this meeting to order. I suppose I have to do that officially. And now I will, on the second item, and this is a bit of a different meeting tonight in that it is Demolition Committee for the City of Westmount, but we are doing 4 demolitions at once. And this, hang on one second, and we are doing 4 demolitions at once. So we will review each file individually, and as we recuse ourselves to deliberate, we will come back and then we will move on to the next file. So we will be beginning with 1 Murray Avenue. But I will start with the adoption of the agenda with Councillor Peart. Councillor Peart.
I move that the agenda of the Demolition Committee sitting of May 5th, 2022 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Peart. A seconder will be Councillor Aronson. All in favor? Carried. Item number 3, again, Councillor Peart, le dépôt du procès-verbal du comité consultatif d'urbanisme, tabling of the Planning Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Peart. Thank
you, Madame la Mairesse. I'll dispense with the whereases. I move that the Demolition Committee acknowledge and accept the minutes of the special meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee held on April 5th, 2022.
Thank you. Councillor Gallery would like to second that. All in favor? Carried. And now we will begin with the application for a demolition permit for a preliminary program for the accessory building located at 1 Murray Avenue. Then I'd first like just explain that the first object of this meeting is to render a decision on the demolition application for the accessory building located at 1 Murray Avenue in accordance with the Act respecting land use planning and development, as well as bylaw 1317 concerning demolition. Madame Amélie Pelletier, who is here with us tonight at City Hall, urban planning consultant, will present the demolition project. The applicant will then be invited to make a representation to the committee members, and any interested persons who sent either their comments or oppositions to the city clerk's office within the prescribed time period have been invited to attend the meeting and may make representations to the committee. I will also decide at that point if there's anyone else who would like to make representations to the committee. Once the committee has heard all those who would like to make a statement, we will have an opportunity to withdraw to deliberate on the project. And finally, the committee will render a decision or adjourn the meeting to render a decision at a later date. So now I will hand it over to Madame Pelletier, who will present the project.
Merci. Donc, vous voyez bien, vous m'entendez bien. Parfait. Donc, je vais débuter. C'est très long. Oui, donc, comme ça a été expliqué, c'est pour la démolition complète d'un bâtiment accessoire au 1 Murray. Donc, bâtiment qui est situé sur l'avenue Murray, près du chemin Côte-Saint-Antoine, donc à proximité du parc King George. Le bâtiment est situé en fond de cour arrière, donc implanté sur la ligne de l'eau arrière et la ligne de l'eau latérale, donc qui est visible également de la voie publique. C'est un bâtiment qui a été construit en 1917 et conçu par l'architecte John W. McGregor, dont les principaux matériaux sont la brique d'argile rouge. Le bâtiment, bien qui est du même style que le bâtiment principal et même matérialité, a été construit après le bâtiment principal. Le bâtiment principal, en fait, a été construit en 1905. Et c'est un bâtiment de catégorie 1. Donc, ce qu'on peut voir sur les élévations d'origine qui datent de 1917, c'est que le bâtiment a été altéré par l'agrandissement de la porte de garage, en fait, l'agrandissement de l'ouverture pour la porte de garage. Mais somme toute, les caractéristiques d'origine du bâtiment, par exemple la toiture, les éléments sur la façade latérale comme les portes-fenêtres ont quand même été bien conservés. Le garage en fait présente plusieurs signes de détérioration sur les façades et la toiture, notamment des signes d'infiltration d'eau, de moisissure, d'efflorescence de la brique, causée entre autres par le cycle gel-dégel. On peut voir le contexte, comme je disais, à partir de l'avenue Murray. Le bâtiment est quand même bien visible de la rue. Plus bas, en fait, on voit le bâtiment principal à partir du chemin de la côte Saint-Antoine. Pour ce qui est du programme préliminaire de remplacement, ce qui est proposé à l'emplacement du garage, c'est vraiment un couvre-sol, donc la pelouse et la plantation d'un arbre. Et ensuite, je poursuis avec les procédures en vertu du règlement de démolition 1317. Il y a d'abord eu un avis public et un affichage sur l'immeuble qui a été fait le 22 mars. Ensuite, il y a eu une période de 10 jours pour la réception des commentaires et des oppositions. Pendant cette période-là, on a reçu 3 commentaires du public, mais aucune opposition à la démolition n'a été reçue. La réunion du CCU a eu lieu le 5 avril. Laquelle il y a eu une recommandation défavorable à la démolition. Ensuite, aujourd'hui, on se retrouve pour la décision du comité de démolition, le 5 mai, qui devra porter notamment sur les critères d'évaluation tels que prescrits dans le règlement de démolition, soit l'état de l'immeuble visé par la demande, la détérioration de l'apparence architecturale ou du caractéristique du voisinage, le coût de la restauration, l'utilisation projetée du sol dégagé et tout autre critère pertinent. Merci. Donc, Madame Franco, Martha Franco, en fait, qui est la demanderesse, va pouvoir présenter et proposer des informations additionnelles si elle le souhaite.
Very good. Thank you so much for your attention. So I prepared a document in regards to the demolition request for this garage.
Sorry, is that on the screen now? Can we?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's the same one that's on our screen. Okay, sorry. All right, thank you.
Perfect. So the document explains, well, the introduction, locating the project within the city, and then it goes into a historical overview of the actual garage in question. What is remarkable about this is that we are in front of one of the most beautiful projects from our very, very well-known architect, Robert Findlay, who built this house in 1905. The house was not intended to have initially and originally an accessory garage at all. This garage was added after by others trying to mimic or imitate some of the architectural gestures that Findlay used in the beautiful One Murray house that is as now standing. So the garage was built by architect McGregor in 1917. Indicated has been changed. It's not as per the original. And in the rest of my presentation, I'm going to actually put more emphasis into the existing conditions of the garage, which are in a very, very bad conditions. All the lower parts of the brick walls all around, and especially in particular the walls to the neighbors in the back and on the side, they have mold, they have infiltrations. The garage, when our client inquired about repairing these conditions, which are very, very difficult to deal with, masons indicated that most of the masonry, the existing masonry, will have to be rebuilt. We're in front of a building that has three layers of brick as originally built, and that will be a repair that will be very, very hard to do. Mold has has taken over. There's infiltrations, there's mortar deterioration also that causes problems to the building because it has not been maintained. Thank you so much. And then infiltrations are also coming through, as you see, through the slab of the on top of the roof. That part is fully deteriorated, and the building itself is in very bad state. I also would like to outline the fact that the percentage of occupation pertaining to this location regarding the exigencies of the city of Westmount allows for 30% of the occupation of the area, which the accessory building brings it to 36%. So our intention is to actually lower that percentage to make it more compliant to the zoning exigencies, which by demolishing the garage will bring it down to 31%, which is closer to the 30% as per the exigencies of the zoning exigencies of this property, and making it more of a value of a green area. Instead, following the guidelines of the Garden City and following our intention to make it into a beautiful garden. So that's basically it. That's basically my presentation regarding this request.
Thank you, Ms. Franco.
Thank you.
And now do we have any questions from any of the councillors, either in the room or online? For Ms. Franco?
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Gallery. I think if you're willing, we have a few questions for you about the project. Thank you.
Hi, just a question of clarification. You mentioned that there were 3 layers of brick. Is that on all 4 sides?
The construction of the main facade is an intricate brick construction, but on the back and on the side, that's the other problem. In fact, is the insulation of the building. The building is right now exposed to so like the walls freeze during the winter and then they thaw during the springtime. So it goes. That's also part of the problem.
Which is causing the damage, right?
Yes.
That's what you're saying
Yes.
is that's causing the damage. Councillor Aronson, I see you going for your mic. Yes, and then if the councillors online have any questions, just send me a text.
Thank you, Ms. Franco. In the photographs that have been provided, I note the presence of some radiators within the building. I'm wondering if the building is currently serviced by any form of plumbing or electrical power. Is it possible to heat the building in the winter? And in the event that it is not, could you tell us what happened to the electrical or plumbing services that once did service the building?
Yes, so the building, it's not insulated, does not have proper insulation as such. As you see the bricks, you can see from inside, and it actually heating up the building in itself cost a fortune during winter. So as it's not insulated, so that's part of the problem also. Both of the services of electrical or whatever service is there, there's no plumbing as such, there's drainage, but they will be canceled because in the intention of our client is just to fill up, demolish the foundations and fill up and restore his garden with green porous occupation.
Thank you. Just to be clear, the existing radiators that are within the structure themselves, are they functional?
I cannot tell you exactly. I know they have not been functioning for many, many years because As I explained, it costs a fortune to heat up the garage, given that it's not insulated.
Right. So it looks to me like those radiators circulate warm, when they're used, circulate hot water, which would imply that there's some underground plumbing that must be connected to the main structure or have an independent boiler of some kind. Could you tell us a little bit more about exactly how the heating system in that garage would have worked had
I
it been
don't
used?
know about any separate boiling equipment separate and dedicated to the garage in itself. I have not witnessed having that separate equipment for that. So my guess is that it is actually connected to the rest of the system of the original house. But I know for a fact that it costs a lot to heat up. So it's a point that my client also would like to resolve by demolishing the garage. Not only that, the repairing of the garage, just thinking about doing the repairs properly, will need to include again insulation, and it will become very, very expensive repairs, plus the rest of the allocations for the proper insulation, etc.
I don't see anyone asking questions from online, but they may in a second. I just had just one quick clarification. The building is the original except for the door, right? Everything on the building is the
Yes.
original except for the garage door, which was probably a,
Yes, original, but not original from the house.
yes, yeah. So it was built about 10 years after
Yes,
the original Finley design.
not by the same architect. though.
Not by the same architect, but it is essentially the original except for the door at this point, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then it has obviously has a driveway that leads to it. And we haven't addressed that because you're really just talking about the demolition,
Yes.
but that obviously is a lot of hard surface as well.
Yes, in fact, well, I don't know if I should mention this, but there has been, or if you're knowledgeable of it already, but there's also a permit application for doing integrated garages
Yeah,
inside the
okay,
house. So all that area will become green. It will be turned into a green space.
Okay.
And then a proper garage will be built in the basement of the house with a new driveway, which has been planned to the other side of the building because that's what makes the most sense to avoid a big difference between the levels.
okay.
So it was
So
naturally the
that's
way
obviously
we wanted
different
to go.
from what we have to address in terms of demolition, but I was just curious about that. I think Councillor Peart has a question from online. Councillor Peart?
Yes, thank you, Madame la Mayoress. I hope you can hear me, Ms. Franco.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Just a quick question about the site coverage use. Your report states that it's currently at 36%, which exceeds the maximum allowable of 30%.
Yes. it is.
So do you have an idea of how much of, if this garage were to be demolished, what would be the remaining site coverage?
31.
31. So it'd still be in excess of the allowable 30%. And so,
But closer to the porous surface objective that you have in your zoning.
right. And then, so because of this, and in any case, even with the garage, if the garage were to be demolished, your client would not be able to build anything like a pool house or another accessory building in the future date because they're already at the ceiling of the
That is
coverage.
correct.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Just one minor question, just a clarification. Is this a category 1 or a category 2?
lack of insulation. So not really, because in whatever other kind of idea that could be explored, it will remain as a very, very
Costly.
important repair.
Thank you.
Sorry, Claude, they're saying online they can't, they cut out again in terms of hearing Ms. Franco's last comments. So I don't know if we.
Yeah, the comment was relating.
Hang
the
on one
question.
second. Okay, can you hear her now if she speaks?
Hello?
Okay, all right. So I don't know if you want to recap that, Kathleen, just so that they can hear online, because it is a pertinent question in terms
The
of.
little structure that we're talking about, if they could be explored for other optional uses for it, could it be used as, I don't know, I asked if it was explored, the possibilities.
So there's two things related. I'm going to extend on that question. First of all, whatever possibility of the use of this structure, the structure would need to have a very, very important repairs. First of all, to start with. Other than that, given that the percentage of occupation is more than what the zoning exceeds the zoning exigencies, I know for a fact that we are not supposed to touch the structures that exceed. It has been explained to me in the past that given that we cannot determine if the 6% exceeding belongs to the house or belongs to the accessory building, it's not something that will be able to modify much. So to reuse it in other ways will be a challenge in that sense.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions that I hear from the room? And I don't hear any others online. So I'd also just like to report that the city clerk's office received 3 letters of comments for the demolition application. And I don't see anyone here who, I don't know, are there any other questions in the room? Are you the owner of the building? No. No, okay. Oh, okay, all right. Does anyone in the room have any comments on this? No? Beyond Ms. Franco? Okay, we are going to adjourn. We are going to leave for a moment to deliberate in the general committee room, and we will be back. So if anyone's watching online, we will be back and be able to render a decision, hopefully.
Thank you.
And I think that Councillor Peart, do you have a comment? Is that what I'm
Well, if
hearing
there's still
from you right
time, it's
now?
just.
And
yeah,
now
if
you're,
there's-
this is very glitchy. I don't. Councillor
I don't know
Peart?
if you- Yes, if I could just throw one last comment in, just as a follow-up to Councillor Kez's question about alternate uses. Elsewhere in the territory, we've seen some garages.
Councillor Peart, we can't hear you.
No?
Yes.
How about now?
Yes.
You're good. You're good. Go.
Okay, excellent. And other projects in the territory, other properties in the territory, we've seen these garages sometimes converted to, I've seen a greenhouse, I've seen a pool house, I've seen a secondary building being used as an alternate garden studio. You have exhausted all the opportunities that are available to you.
Given the major renovations or repairs that the building has before doing anything to the building or thinking about any other use of it, there's still the insulation, there's still the infiltrations, there's still the fact that the brick itself is full of mold within. There's many problems that are very difficult to repair. It's not a small just repair renovation. The building itself is in very bad state. From what I understand also is given that it overpasses the percentage of occupation, and given that it is an existing structure in that overpassing of percentage of occupation, from what I understand, it's not supposed to go through major modifications. So other than that, even modifying it, it really requires major renovations or correctives or corrections before doing anything to the building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions before we head out? Councillor Aaron.
Just one really quick question. We understand, having heard your presentation, that the core problem with this building as it presently exists is that it's in very poor condition and it will be very expensive to repair.
It is in fact.
Indeed. When the current owner purchased the property, was there a thorough site inspection by a professional evaluator or inspector done prior to purchase? In other words, was the state of the building known to the current owner at the time that it was purchased?
I don't have an answer precisely on that specific matter. The owner has, I know he's facing a situation presently with the building in which the extent of the repairs is to an extent that he cannot really withhold such a extensive repair renovation. The fact it is that given that it overpasses the percentage of occupation, he'd rather prefer to have a green garden instead of having a structure that is not of use for his property.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we will recuse ourselves for a few minutes and we will be back. Okay, thanks. We are back, so let's test that we're ready with a decision. Councillor Peart, let's make sure we can hear you. Otherwise, I will hand it over to Councillor Gallery to move the motion. Can we hear you?
Let's see, can you hear me?
Can we hear him?
I hear you online.
Hello.
All right. I will now hand the committee's decision over to Councillor Peart to move the motion.
Hold on a second, just pulling up the right paper. Thank you, Madame la Mairesse. Whereas on April 27th of 2021, a demolition permit application was submitted to the city of Westmount for the complete demolition of an accessory building located at 1 Murray Avenue. Whereas on March 22nd of 2022, a public notice was published as required by law and the city of Westmount's bylaw, and a copy of said notice was posted on the proposed demolition site. Whereas following the publication of the public notice, the city clerk's office received 3 letters of comment. Whereas the original accessory building built in 1917 has hardly been altered and offers an architectural authenticity superior to that of the main building. Whereas the accessory building contributes to the built environment, namely because of its visibility from the street. Whereas the accessory building is in harmony with the architecture of the main building, namely in terms of its materiality and architectural style. Whereas the proposal submitted has not sufficiently demonstrated the poor condition of the accessory building and that it does not render it irretrievable. Whereas the preservation of the accessory building does not restrict the possibility of relocating the driveway and creating a garage attached to the main building. Whereas the accessory building has a potential for reuse. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee issued an unfavorable recommendation to the demolition application at a special meeting held on April 5th, 2022. Whereas the positive recommendation of the Urban Planning Department with respect to the demolition has reservations and highlights the architectural quality and heritage interest of the accessory building. I move that the preamble be part of this resolution, that the application for a demolition permit for the accessory building located at 1 Murray Avenue be denied in accordance with the analysis and information provided in the application number 2021-00649 dated April 27, 2021.
All right, thank you, Councillor Peart. Councillor Gallery, would you like to second this? Any further comments from any of the members of the Demolition Committee? We take, as you know, we take any demolition application very seriously. And this has been discussed and reviewed thoroughly, first obviously by the department as well as the PAC and by council. So if anyone has any further comments on this? No? All right, then I'll call for a vote. And I think we'll be able to see everybody online. Mugisha, all those in favor? Or yes, all those in favor of the motion as read?
Aye.
So the 4 in the room, yes, we can see you. Okay, so that is unanimous. Thank you. That's the end of the demolition hearing for 1 Murray Avenue. So we will now move into the next one for 665 Belmont Avenue. So you're welcome to stay, obviously, Ms. Franco, if you want, but that's the end of discussion. I'm sure you're disappointed, but I think I think the motion details the explanation for the vote going that way. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right, so we will now move to item number 5, which is application for a demolition permit and for a preliminary program for the accessory building located at 665 Belmont Avenue. Again, do I need to, Monsieur Le Greffier, do I need to read through all the procedures as well? Again, I guess so, eh? Wait, I knew you would say that.
Sorry.
I would like to explain that the second object of this meeting is to render a decision on the demolition application for the accessory building located at 665 Belmont Avenue. in according with the Act respecting land use planning and development, as well as bylaw 1317 concerning demolition. Madame Amélie Pelletier from our urban planning consultant will present the demolition project. The applicant will then be invited to make representation to the committee members. Any interested persons who sent in either comments or opposition to the city clerk's office within the prescribed time period have been invited to attend the meeting and may make representations to the committee. The chair may also decide to hear any other person who wishes to make representations to the committee. Once the committee has heard all those who would like to make a statement, it will have the opportunity to withdraw to deliberate on the project. Finally, the committee will render a decision or adjourn the meeting to render a decision at a later date. So now I hand it over to Madame Pelletier, who's going to present the file. And I'm not sure if we have the applicant, is the applicant presenting anything on this one?
Non, la personne a été convoquée, mais n'a pas souhaité être présente.
OK, parfait. Donc, c'est juste vide. OK. C'est à vous.
Oui, merci. Donc, prochain dossier. Oui, pour la demande de démolition complète d'un bâtiment accessoire au 665 Belmont. Il y a quand même une note importante pour ce dossier, c'est que le garage a déjà été démoli d'urgence au mois de décembre 2021, avant qu'une décision concernant la démolition ait été rendue par le comité de démolition. Néanmoins, toutes les procédures requises par le règlement de démolition doivent s'appliquer. Et dans le cas où une décision sera favorable, un permis de démolition devra être émis. Donc, le bâtiment est localisé sur, le terrain en fait localisé sur l'avenue Belmont, à proximité de Boulevard. Le bâtiment est implanté dans la cour arrière, en plein milieu en fait de la cour arrière, directement sur la ligne de l'eau arrière, donc qui limite les possibilités d'utilisation de la cour arrière par les propriétaires. Le bâtiment a été construit en 1914, conçu par l'architecte T.W. Pierce, encore une fois, matériau principal en briques rouges. Le bâtiment a été construit après le bâtiment principal qui, lui, est de catégorie 2 et date de 1911. Ce qu'on peut voir sur les élévations d'origine en bas qui datent de 1914, c'est que le bâtiment a été altéré par l'ouverture, en fait, par l'agrandissement de l'ouverture de la porte de garage. Le bâtiment a été, en fait, le garage était en très mauvais état. Il présentait plusieurs plusieurs problèmes structuraux, dont de nombreuses fissures apparentes, notamment en raison du mouvement des sols qui ont provoqué la déstabilisation de la structure. Comme on peut voir sur les photos du bas, il présentait également plusieurs signes d'infiltration d'eau, et de l'infloration, souvent, encore une fois, de la brique. Mais je pense que le plus marquant est vraiment les éléments structuraux qui sont apparents. Pour ce qui est du programme préliminaire de remplacement, il s'agit d'un aménagement paysager qui comprend l'installation d'une nouvelle piscine creusée. Donc, voilà pour le programme préliminaire de remplacement. Encore une fois, le cheminement de la demande, il y a eu un avis public et un affichage sur l'immeuble qui a été fait le 22 mars. Il y a une période de 10 jours qui a été allouée pour la réception des commentaires et des oppositions. Période pendant laquelle on a reçu un seul commentaire du public, mais aucune opposition à la démolition. Le projet a été vu au CCU le 5 avril. Le CCU a émis une recommandation favorable à la démolition lors de la réunion. Donc, aujourd'hui, la décision sera rendue par le comité de démolition en fonction de critères d'évaluation qui, je répète, sont l'état de l'immeuble, la détérioration de l'apparence architecturale ou du caractère esthétique du voisinage, le coût de la restauration, l'utilisation projetée du sol dégagé et tout autre critère pertinent. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Pelletier. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Are there any questions from any members of council or anyone online?
I have one.
Yeah, Councillor Gallery.
When the demolition took place, was the city notified?
La ville a été informée de la démolition au mois de décembre et il y a eu un inspecteur qui a été dépêché sur place là, pour constater la démolition.
Okay. And the city clerk's office received only one letter of comment pertaining to this demolition. Online, do we have any questions from the counselors that are joining us virtually tonight? I'm not hearing any. No? Any further details we want to share about this file that haven't already been shared? No? Okay, so we will recuse just to deliberate on this one, and we will be back. Make sure your microphones are
question if I can. So I live behind this house, 660 Murray Hill, and I just want to understand why the owner was able to demolish the garage.
So what do you have on the agenda? You should ask that question to the microphone.
Okay.
So that it's registered.
Okay.
We have one question from the audience, and had you submitted a letter? Are you the one letter?
I'm the one letter who supported the demolition.
Okay,
I live at 660 Murray Hill. right
sorry, and I should have done the question period before we did the double.
It's all good.
I
No-
didn't think you were
No problem, no
here for
problem.
that. Okay, so ask your question.
So my question is, how come the owner of the property was able to demolish the garage without the approval of this committee?
I will hand that over to the urban planning department, and they can explain the details of that, but it was essentially, I don't, what's the technical term? I don't
It
wanna
was
say tainted.
dilapidated, it was falling apart?
Yes, and it was a dangerous situation. So Madame Petsy, do you want to give further details on that?
Yes, in fact, in that case, an application was already submitted. But during that, en parallèle, c'est correct si je parle français. En parallèle à cette demande-là, il y a une demande de PIA qui est en cours qui a été d'ailleurs approuvée, autorisée par le conseil pour la construction d'un garage souterrain à même le bâtiment principal. Et les travaux de construction reliés à cette demande de permis-là ont contribué à fragiliser la structure du bâtiment accessoire avec le mouvement des sols, tout ça. Donc, pour cette raison-là, étant donné que la structure était fragilisée, le bâtiment a été démoli par le propriétaire, mais le reste, que c'était quelque chose qui était illégal dans le sens où toute demande de démolition doit être approuvée par le comité de démolition et un permis de démolition qui doit être obtenu. Donc, dans ce cas-ci, comme j'ai expliqué dans ma présentation, toutes les procédures juridiques doivent, même si le bâtiment est démoli, doivent s'appliquer. Puis, il y a quand même un permis de démolition qui doit être émis si la décision qui est rendue est positive.
Alors,
But you are asking a very pertinent question, right? Because you want to make sure that we have seen this in other places in the city, but the demolition permit was already in place, and then it was
like I'm just
a
thinking of the
dangerous
person
situation.
before, the architect, I don't remember her name,
Martha Franco.
Martha, who was talking about that house. If these people would have done what this person did and demolished it, you guys wouldn't have denied them, right? Like at the end of the day, it would have been demolished. It would have
There
been
is
too
a
late.
process for, obviously, we have a process for dealing with work like this that is not done with a permit of how the city deals with them. And this is not an ideal situation. I'd say these are different. I get it. They're back-to-back garages being asked for a demolition permit and getting different outcomes.
Right.
But they are different houses, different garages, different.
Because my personal garage on Murray Hill was actually attached to this garage.
Okay.
And it didn't seem so bad to me. Like if it shook his structure, it would have shaken mine also, and my structure is fine.
And continues to be fine.
And continues to
post
stand today. And
demolition.
it was actually attached to it. Like our walls were attached. So that's why I'm just curious what the repercussions are for someone like him who just demolishes his garage, and what kind of precedent that sets.
There are repercussions. I can't go into the details specifically of what that was for this specific file, but I can tell you that our inspectors are well aware, and we have a process in place for how we deal with people doing unpermitted work.
Okay.
Fines being the deterrent.
Understood.
For future people to so I won't talk about the specific details of what those are, but it is in place.
Okay.
And yes, it's not ideal. This is the second time this year we've had to deal with a demolition file.
Wow.
After the fact. This is a much smaller file than the previous one, but
Okay. Thank you for answering the questions.
It has been reviewed thoroughly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, any other questions or comments from anyone? All right, we will now render the decision, which Councillor Peart will do. Councillor Peart.
Thank you, Madame la Mairesse. I'll read the whereases. Whereas on April 12th of 2021, a demolition permit application was submitted to the City of Westmount for the complete demolition of an accessory building located at 665 Belmont Avenue. Whereas on March 22nd of 2022, a public notice was published as required by law in the City of Westmount's bylaw. Whereas on March 22nd of 2022, a copy of said notice was posted on the proposed demolition site. Whereas following the publication of the public notice, the City Clerk's office received one letter of comment. Whereas the accessory building is in an advanced state of deterioration at the structural level, as demonstrated in the report provided by the applicant. Whereas the accessory building has little heritage value. Whereas the accessory building does not contribute to the built environment of the area. Whereas the accessory building has undergone numerous alterations since its construction in 1914. Whereas the location of the garage on the site restricts the possibilities of development and use of the rear yard. Whereas the preliminary replacement program includes landscaping with a pool. Whereas the demolition application was submitted on April 12th of 2021 in conjunction with an application subject to the Site Planning and Architectural Integration Program, SPAIP, for an extension and installation of a garage attached to the main building, which was authorized by Council on July 5th of 2021. Whereas the excavation work carried out as part of the permit application for the extension contributed to the weakening of the structure of the accessory building, causing a risk of collapse. Whereas the accessory building was demolished on an emergency basis prior to obtaining a demolition permit. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee issued a favorable recommendation to the demolition application at a special meeting held on April 5th of 2022. Whereas the Urban Planning Department of the City of Westmount has issued a favorable recommendation to the demolition application, I move that the preamble be part of this resolution, that the application for authorization to demolish the accessory building located at 665 Belmont Avenue be accepted in accordance with the analysis and information provided in the permit application number 2021-00503 dated April 12th, 2021, and this according to the following conditions. 1, that landscaping in accordance with the regulations be approved by the city and completed within 12 months following the issuance of the demolition permit. 2, that a monetary guarantee for the execution of the preliminary program for an amount representing 25% of the projected value of the work before taxes be provided prior to the issuance of the demolition permit for the realization of the program for the reuse of the cleared land requiring the demolition of the accessory building located at 665 Avenue Belmont. Said monetary guarantee may, at the request of the applicant, be refunded without interest, provided that the preliminary program is substantially completed within the time frame specified. 3, that the construction permit or certificate of authorization be issued prior to or simultaneously with the issuance of the demolition permit.
Thank you, Councillor Peart. Councillor Gallery would like to second this. Any further comments other than what we've already heard tonight? No? All right, then I will call for a vote from council. All those in the room, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. And online, I see Councillor D'Amico in favor, Councillor Bostock and Councillor Peart. All right, carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to our next application for a demolition permit and for a preliminary program for the building located at 45 Roxborough Avenue. I would like to explain that the third object of this meeting is to render a decision on the demolition application of the building located at 45 Roxborough Avenue in accordance with the Act respecting land use planning and development, as well as bylaw 1317 concerning demolition. Madame Amélie Pelletier from the Urban Planning Department will present the demolition project. The applicant will then be invited to make representation to the committee members. Any interested persons who either sent comments or oppositions to the city clerk's office within the prescribed time period have been invited to attend the meeting and make representations to the committee. The chair may also decide to hear any other person who wishes to make representations to the committee. Once the committee has heard all those who would like to make a statement, it will have the opportunity to withdraw to deliberate on the project. Finally, the committee will render a decision or adjourn the meeting to render a decision at a later date. I will now hand it over to Madame Pensier, who will present the file.
Merci. Donc, demande de démolition pour le 45 Roxboro, qui est un bâtiment résidentiel unifamilial. En fait, il s'agit de la seconde demande de démolition qui vise le bâtiment. Il y a une première demande de démolition partielle, donc établie à 68,3 % qui a été autorisée le 17 juin en 2019 pour le bâtiment. Donc, les travaux de démolition ont par contre excédé ce qui a été autorisé sur la première demande de permis. La demande actuelle vise donc à entériner les travaux de démolition qui sont maintenant établis à 89,9 %. Donc, des travaux qui ont déjà été réalisés. Le bâtiment est localisé au nord du territoire, donc sur l'avenue Roxboro, près de l'avenue de Devon. Ici, on voit l'implantation du bâtiment préexistant, je pourrais dire. C'est un bâtiment qui était de catégorie 3, date de construction 1956, de style bungalow et conçu par les architectes Thibodeau et Thibodeau. En ce moment, comme j'expliquais, le projet, les travaux de démolition ont déjà été réalisés. Donc, cette rencontre-là, c'est vraiment pour entériner les travaux de démolition qui ont été réalisés, advenant que la décision qui sera rendue sera favorable. Le contexte dans lequel se trouve le bâtiment, c'est dans un contexte de bâtiment unifamilial et ce qu'on retrouve souvent dans cette zone-là, c'est des bâtiments de 2 étages. Donc, on peut voir les voisins sont tous les deux des bâtiments de 2 étages. Le programme préliminaire de remplacement, dans le fond, c'est un programme d'implantation au sol qui reste inchangé du bâtiment qui était existant, donc du bungalow à l'époque. C'est un programme préliminaire qui a déjà été autorisé par le conseil municipal dans le cadre d'une demande PIA qui a eu lieu le 3 septembre 2019, qui suivait l'autorisation de la première demande de démolition. Donc, il n'y a rien qui change, c'est le même programme de remplacement qui avait été approuvé à l'époque en 2019. Donc, on peut voir, c'est un bâtiment de 2 étages de type moderne. On peut voir aussi les élévations, élévation avant, donc devant l'avenue Roxboro, élévation latérale en bas. Encore des élévations, une élévation de la cour arrière, puis une élévation de la façade latérale au nord. Pour ce qui est des procédures, il y a eu également un avis public et un affichage sur l'immeuble le 22 mars, suivi d'une période de 10 jours pour permettre la réception des oppositions et des commentaires. On a reçu un commentaire du public, mais aucune opposition à la démolition. Et le CCU, émis une recommandation le 5 avril. C'était une recommandation favorable à la démolition. Et pour ce qui est des critères d'évaluation, je me répète, mais la décision sera rendue notamment sur les critères suivants, donc de l'état de l'immeuble visé dans la demande, de la détérioration de l'apparence architecturale ou du caractère esthétique du voisinage, du coût de la restauration, de l'utilisation projetée du sol dégagé et de tout autre critère pertinent.
Merci beaucoup. And the applicant is not going to make a presentation tonight?
I spoke with the applicant, Mr. Martin Troy. He told me that he was supposed to be here, but so perhaps he's at home watching us, so I'm not sure.
Mugisha, is there anyone online that they're trying to make a presentation or anything? It's une question.
A question online from Mr. Mazi Rijai. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly.
Okay, so that's the question, but the architect for the project, Martin Troy, is not online. Okay. All right, I think we have enough information. Certainly the timeline on this is probably the most pertinent. And we received one letter of comment about this. Is that Monsieur Le Greffier? That's oui. En faveur, or do we have to? We don't have to read it into the.
We don't have to read it.
No. Okay. So we have one question online that I will go to, and then I will go to counselors after if they have any questions. The question is, I am living at 38 Surrey Gardens, and I would like to understand the timing, how the timing of this project is now being considered. We took part in a discussion at Town Hall nearly 3 years ago on this project and still see no end to it. Is there a means for me to speak online? So I'm just, is this resident in the chat? Are they online watching right now?
Yes, he is.
All right, so you can invite him to ask a question if he has additional comments than what he put in there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mr. Raji, you can all talk.
Yes, thank you. So we're looking at this project for the whole part of our house. We face this demolished site now. And for 3 years, it's been basically, we were told by the architect when we first showed up at the town hall that this would be a very fast track project. It would take about a year to complete. So the impact on our neighborhood would be limited to that period. That was like 3 years ago. It stood there as a house without demolition for a couple of years. That wasn't too bad. It was still the same house we were used to. There was a fence put around it. Of course, they cut some trees that were very pretty, and I really don't see why they did it when they did it, because right now those trees could have still been there. And then they came at the end of the season last year late, and they demolished the whole house and left. And there's a big hole now. From our window, we can see the hole. It's like a huge, basically like a landfill. It's very, very ugly. So we would like to know what's happening here. Is this project going forward? Is the owner still interested to do it? How is it that we're discussing demolition of a site that's already demolished? How does that work?
Well, they demolished more than they applied for. So then now they have to reapply for it. But I can certainly understand your frustration and that this has taken an exceedingly long time to deal with this project. But because it's already been demolished, but they have to go through the process. They can, urban planning or Monsieur Le Greffier can add to that, or Councillor Peart if they want to, any further details on that. But I can certainly understand from your perspective why this would be an irritant as a neighbor.
Well, yeah. I mean, is there actually some hard planning put forward about this project? Have they presented a viable financial method where they can achieve the goals? What is going on here? Is it that they're stuck with, because high costs have gone up, they just will not proceed and this thing's just going to sit there demolished? What is the...
Well, we would address that in the motion
Okay.
if and when we move to approve this demolition, which has already happened. We will address it with a date and some other issues in the motion.
Okay, so I mean, the one thing is of course having a bunch of debris, which is concrete, and soil, which is at least natural colors. The other thing is they've put in a bunch of tarp on the ground, which is orange all over the place. And it's really highlighting the ugliness of the site. If you could kindly ask these people to remove those tarps, make that thing look at least natural while they wait, that would be really appreciated.
Okay, so I have many members of the urban planning department in the room with me tonight, and they have all taken note of that. That is
Thank you.
Of your suggestion.
Thank you.
So thank you for that feedback. Are there any other questions from anyone else online or anyone in the audience? No? Any counselors? Do you have any questions? No, but I think all of, to those listening, Mr. Roger, I think council certainly empathizes with you that it has been a long project, and it's disruptive to live next door to a construction site, and even more so one that's been halted and doesn't look like it's getting finished. So I don't see any hands up from council that's online. So we are now going to deliberate, and we will be back quickly, hopefully. On this, we are now ready to move to the committee's decision. So I will hand it over to Councillor Peart, who is going to move the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madame la Mairesse. Just getting my papers organized here. All right. Whereas on June 14th of 2021, a demolition permit application was submitted to the city of Westmount for the demolition of the building located at 45 Roxborough Avenue. Whereas a partial demolition application for the same building was authorized by the Demolition Committee on June 17th of 2019, resolution number 2019-06-142. Whereas the demolition work performed under the demolition permit issued on November 5th of 2019 exceeded the authorized demolition area. Whereas a notice of infraction which was issued on May 6th of 2021 by the City of Westmount's Urban Planning Department, and the site has remained inactive since that date. Whereas the increase of the demolition area is due to the demolition of the walls surrounding the garage, which had partially collapsed and posed a safety risk, as alleged by the architect on the file. Whereas the demolition work has already been completed. Whereas the preliminary replacement program repeats what was previously authorized by council on September 3rd of 2019 as part of an application subject to the Site Planning and Architectural Integration Program, SPAIP, subsequent to the authorization of the first demolition application. Whereas a monetary guarantee was already required as part of the Demolition Committee's decision at its June 17th of 2019 meeting, resolution number 2019-06-142. Whereas on March 2nd of 2022, a public notice was published as required by law in the City of Westmount's bylaw, and a copy of the said notice was posted on the proposed demolition site. Whereas following the publication of the public notice, the city clerk's office received one letter of comment. Whereas the Urban Planning Department of the City of Westmount has issued a favorable recommendation to the demolition application. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee issued a favorable recommendation for the demolition application at a special meeting held on April 5th of 2022. I move that the preamble be an integral part of the present resolution, that the application for authorization to demolish the building located at 45 Roxborough be accepted in accordance with the analysis and information provided in the permit application number 2021-00957, dated June 14th, 2021, under the following conditions. And at this point, I will switch over to French. Numéro 1. Que les travaux de construction du nouveau bâtiment soient entrepris dans les 12 mois suivant la date de la décision. 2. Que le permis de construction soit émis préalablement ou simultanément à l'émission du permis de démolition. 3. Qu'une garantie monétaire d'exécution du programme préliminaire de 186 040 $, c'est 186 040, doit être fournie conformément à l'article 22 du règlement 1317, représentant 10% de la valeur de l'immeuble, c'est-à-dire 1 860 400 $, et sera retenu jusqu'à l'achèvement substantiel des travaux autorisés par le permis de construction pour le programme de remplacement.
Thank you, Councillor Peart. Councillor Gallery would like to second this. Any further comments from council at this time, online or here? And just before we call for the vote, I would just like to note, and certainly we heard the commentary from one of the residents who's a neighbor up, who lives adjacent to the property. We understand that this has gone on for too long. It's been an empty lot. It is not an ideal situation for the neighbors. So we will work with, we will have our urban planning department certainly speak to them and look at ways that we can, in the interim, I mean, ideally when it becomes a construction site, that's messy, but that is good news because that gets us closer to the goal of having a house there and a family living in it. But in the interim, we will certainly ask them for ways that we can try and beautify the site a little bit so it's not such an eyesore for the neighbors. So on that note, I will, and I also, another note that one of the councillors had brought up is that the difficulty here with moving from one, a certain percentage of demolition to the next one, and that it is, the city is extremely vigilant on this, and this is because demolishing buildings in the city should, certainly a city like ours, is not something to be taken for granted. So on that note, I am going to call for a vote. So all those in favor? And that is unanimous. So that motion is carried. Thank you. And we now move into the fourth and final demolition application for tonight. And that is application for a demolition permit and for preliminary program for the building of the former Westmount incinerator. This is the fourth object of this meeting tonight, and is to render a decision on the demolition application for the building located on lot number 5064110, the former Westmount incinerator, in accordance with the Act respecting land use planning and development, as well as bylaw 1317 concerning demolition. Madame Emily Pelletier from the Urban Planning Department will present the demolition project. The applicant, which is the city, will then be invited to make a representation to committee members, which we won't because Madame Pelletier will be doing that. Any interested persons who sent in their comments, either comments or oppositions to the city clerk's office within the prescribed time period, have been invited to attend the meeting and may make representations to the committee. The chair may also decide to hear any other person who wishes to make representations to the committee. Once the committee has heard all those who would like to make a statement, we will have an opportunity to withdraw to deliberate on the project. Finally, the committee will render a decision or adjourn the meeting to render a decision at a later date. So I will now hand it over to Madame Pelletier, who will present the file of the incinerator, which for those listening is the building behind, or if you don't know, it's the building behind our Westmount Hydro building on Courcelle, and it's sort of below Public Works, but is accessible from Westmount Hydro. So over to you, Madame Pelletier.
Merci. Donc, exactement. Donc, localisé près du chemin Glen et entre l'autoroute Ville-Marie. Donc, on peut le voir ici sur la photo. Donc, ça fait partie c'est sur un lot qui appartient à la ville, qui regroupe plusieurs bâtiments municipaux. Le bâtiment a été construit en 1953, conçu par les architectes Wood and Lansdowne. C'est un bâtiment de catégorie 3 dont l'usage d'origine était un incinérateur à déchets pour la transformation en électricité. Les activités du bâtiment ont cessé dans les années 60. Actuellement, le bâtiment est inutilisé en raison de son mauvais état, mais également en raison du niveau élevé de contaminants. Ce qu'on peut voir sur la photo du haut, c'est que, à l'époque, étant donné que c'est un incinérateur, il y avait une cheminée, mais la cheminée a été démolie dans les années 1980. C'est un bâtiment de type moderniste. Comme on peut le voir ici là, sur les photos, façade latérale droite et la façade arrière qui donne sur la cour de service des travaux publics. Là, on peut voir que la cheminée a été coupée. L'état du bâtiment actuel, comme je le mentionnais, là, il est globalement en mauvais état au niveau structural, selon les rapports qui ont été fournis dans le cadre de la demande. Il y a une présence élevée de contaminants du site là, dû aux activités antérieures. Et l'espace intérieur actuel est inadapté pour les besoins des services municipaux. Le programme préliminaire de remplacement, ici on peut voir l'implantation. La structure qui est proposée reprend l'empreinte au sol du bâtiment existant. Ce qu'on peut voir là, sur l'élévation avant du programme de remplacement, c'est que c'est une structure ouverte avec une toiture en acier, puis on peut voir des escaliers en fait qui seraient à l'arrière du bâtiment, de la structure, pardon, qui permettraient d'accéder à la cour de service des travaux publics. Puis on voit dans le fond qu'il y a des murs de soutènement là, qui permettraient là, d'entourer la structure. Ça servirait la structure permettrait un entreposage pour les besoins municipaux. Une coupe de la structure, comme j'en parlais, là, il y a l'escalier ici qui permet d'accéder à la cour là, qui est un peu plus haut, cour de service des travaux publics. Et une perspective qui permet de mieux comprendre le programme préliminaire. Donc, c'est vraiment l'empreinte existante qui permettrait de l'entreposage pour les besoins des services d'Hydro-Westmount. Pour ce qui est des procédures, il y a eu un avis public, un affichage le 22 mars. Une période de 10 jours a été allouée pour la réception des commentaires. On n'a eu aucun commentaire ni aucune opposition à la démolition suite à cette période. Le projet a été vu par le CCU le 5 avril. Le CCU a émis une recommandation défavorable à la démolition lors de sa réunion. Donc, encore une fois, une dernière fois, je me répète, le comité prend sa décision en fonction notamment de l'état de l'immeuble qui est visé dans la demande, de la détérioration de l'apparence architecturale ou du caractère esthétique du voisinage, du coût de la restauration, de l'utilisation projetée du sol dégagé et de tout autre critère pertinent. Ce qui complète ma présentation. Merci.
Merci, Madame Pelletier. And now we have an opportunity for questions, but first there have been no objections or comments received, no letters that have been received by the city clerk's office in opposition for this demolition. And so now we move to question period, and I don't see anyone in the room asking a question. Does anyone on council have a question or anyone online? First, I'll start with council. Anyone on council? It's a file we have reviewed already, so maybe all your questions have been answered. Anyone online? Councillor Bostock, Peart, or D'Amico? No? Any members of the audience online have any questions? No, okay, and I think it just in terms of comments, obviously council has read the PAC recommendation, which is unfavorable, and we have spent a lot of time asking questions on this to the administration, both the urban planning and the engineering team on this. This is just to highlight for anyone watching as well. This is a building that has not been used since the early 1960s, I believe, was the last time was when it was last operational, and will obviously require some investment to just secure it. So now we will have our deliberation, and we will return for our final file of the evening. So we'll be back in a moment. Okay, we're just waiting for Councillor Roux to return, and we will render a decision on a final demolition application for tonight for the incinerator building. Councillor Roux? We will have to write them down. Okay, we are moving into our final of the evening. So now I will hand it over to Councillor Peart, who will read the motion.
Thank you, Madame la Mairesse. I apologize for some background noise. You might hear some toddler in the background. Whereas on March 11th, 2022, a demolition permit application was submitted to the City of Westmount for the complete demolition of the building located on lot number 5064110, former Westmount incinerator. Whereas on March 22nd of 2022, a public notice was published as required by law in the City of Westmount's bylaw, and a copy of said notice was posted on the proposed demolition site. Whereas following the publication of the public notice, the city clerk's office received no letters of comment or opposition to the demolition of the building. Whereas the building constructed in 1953 is a Category 3 building and is the second incinerator to be constructed on the site. Whereas the heritage and architectural contribution of the building is considered low to moderate. Whereas the building has been altered by the removal of the upper portion of its chimney, which was an important character defining element of the building, a reminder of its original function. Whereas changes were made to the immediate environment of the building, namely the reconfiguration of the highway. Whereas the high level of contaminants and the advanced state of deterioration of the structure have rendered the building unsafe and unusable for several years. Whereas the cost of the restoration work is high, namely due to the high level of contaminants and the positioning of the building on the slope. Whereas the municipal services have a need for storage space and the replacement program would satisfy this need. Whereas the replacement program would require an amendment to the urban planning bylaw, whereas the location of the replacement program on the site and its visibility from Glen Road is a point of entry to the City of Westmount. Whereas the preliminary replacement program will require a study and subsequent authorization in accordance with the criteria and objectives of bylaw 1305 on site planning and architectural integration programs. Whereas the Urban Planning Department of the City of Westmount has issued a favorable recommendation to the demolition application. Whereas the Urban Planning Department of the City of Westmount has issued a favorable recommendation to the demolition application. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee during a special meeting held on April 5th of 2022 issued an unfavorable recommendation to the demolition application. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee during a special meeting held on April 5th of 2022 issued an unfavorable recommendation to the demolition application, namely due to the quality of the preliminary replacement program.
Counselor, you're on mute.
No, I'm just asking my toddler to keep it down. I move that the preamble be an integral part of this resolution, that the application for authorization to demolish the former Westmount incinerator located on lot number 5064110 be accepted in accordance with the analysis and information provided in the application for permit number 2022-00209 dated March 11th of 2022 under the following conditions: that an amendment to the zoning bylaw for zone 13-38-01, sorry, I3, not 13, but I3-38-01 be approved by council in accordance with the provisions of Act respecting land use planning and development in order to allow the physical spatial components of the replacement program. 2, that a replacement program in accordance with bylaw 1305 on site planning and architectural integration programs be approved by council.
Thank you, Councillor Peart. A seconder on this will be Councillor Gallery. Any further comments from you or any other members of council at this point? I have a few comments if you want me to?
The only
go
comment
first?
I'll make is, yes, there was a unfavorable recommendation from PAC. However, PAC was working to, PAC has a different mandate to review these files under. As counselors, we have to, as I said before, we have to zoom out and think of the holistic impact of this decision. And then it's that for that reason why there's a different decision than has been recommended to us by PAC.
Thank you. And it's, a couple important things to highlight is that it has not been used since the 1960s, this building, and has continued to deteriorate to such a state where we'll have to invest in it just to secure it. And we also, since the MTQ was built, we have had, we've been dealing with contamination issue and storage. So this would address that as well, but it's certainly not lost on me, or I don't think any other members of council, that, you know, obviously any work on this building would require funds, whether it be demolished, whether it be refurbished and turned into something else, would require an investment on behalf of the city. And this is a building that is, you know, probably most people in Westmount don't even know that it's there, because it's just, as you mentioned before, the distinctive chimney is no longer there. So it's not a building residents use, citizens use. It is, it's not a building that's particularly accessible by any means. So it is, but it is something that we have to address at this point. And it is important to highlight that it was the PAC's unfavorable recommendation was with the replacement program. So this is, demolition permits are contingent on replacement programs. But I think those are all my comments on it. Does anyone else have a comment on this? No? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, both online and in person unanimously. So that adjourns the four demolition requests for tonight. So thank you, everyone. Good night.